Egypt is working with the Tanzanian government to build the Steigler's George Dam on the Rufiji River in Tanzania, at a time when the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam issue between Ethiopia and two downstream countries, Egypt and Sudan, reached a turning point. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Gheit said that the next step for Egypt and Sudan is to file a complaint against Ethiopia before the UN Security Council through Tunisia, the state representing the Arab countries in the Council. Tanzanian Minister of Investment Geoffrey Mwabe said that Egypt is one of Tanzania's top 10 economic partners, as both countries have agreed on several major projects and started implementing some, including the Steigler's George Dam project and the Julius Nyerere hydropower station attached to it. Earlier, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi discussed bilateral relations with his Tanzanian counterpart, Samia Hassan, in a phone call. They touched upon the existence of broad prospects for developing relations between Egypt and Tanzania, praising the Egyptian support for Tanzanian development efforts, especially through the construction of the dam and the Julius Nyerere hydropower station that are the largest national projects in Tanzania. The dam will also protect the Tanzanian people from the repeated losses annually due to the floods. However, many observers believe that the gains from the construction of the Steigler's George Dam are not limited to economic profits, but also extends to achieving significant political gains in the GERD issue. The Egyptian company's keenness to build a dam in Tanzania under the directives of President al-Sisi refutes all the accusations leveled by Ethiopia against Egypt.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Abu Zeid. Now, Doctor, you've mentioned that it does show a sense of goodwill from the Egyptian government to really help construct the Julius Nyerere Dam, which is important nowadays, and it has been important for the past 10 years since the negotiations started with the construction of the Ethiopian dam. Now, there's a lot of talk, and analysts and observers and the citizens in general, they're talking about the construction of the dam, the operating and filling regulations of it, and quite recently the second filling of the dam. A lot of people were saying it's very dangerous. A lot of people are saying it proved it actually failed. So can you please shed light on how important is it to have a binding agreement for the operating and filling of the dam, and how successful was it, the second filling of the dam, a unilateral measure, or did it prove a failure?
Mm-hmm. Well, the three countries have agreed at some point when they signed the Declaration of Principles on the Renaissance Dam that they will be agreeing on the rules and regulations and guidelines of the first filling and the operation of the dam. And this first filling is not just the first year filling, but it's the first filling of the dam so that it would be fully operational. So there are estimates that this first filling size could be around 49 billion out of the whole 74 billion cubic meters of water, which is the storage capacity of the Renaissance Dam. The first year filling happened last year before the countries reach an agreement on the rules and regulations, and that's a violation of this Declaration of Principles. The second year filling, whether it was a success or failure or a partial storage or filling, but some filling happened, and it was not the target that Ethiopia announced it would fill, but it is some partial level of filling, which happened again with a violation of the Declaration of Principles, because the countries did not reach an agreement yet, and especially it was because of the procrastination and delays that Ethiopia, and the announcements that were made by Ethiopian
Prime Minister
officials saying that we do not want, or we will not reach or sign a binding agreement, which is completely opposite to what they agreed to in the Declaration of Principles. I mean, they signed the Declaration of Principles saying that they will be agreeing to the rules and regulations of the filling and the operation. And the operational rules are more important even than just the filling. The impacts of the dam will not be seen today or this year. They could be seen in the following years based on the rules of operation. Because the flood of the Nile River and the Blue Nile, where the dam is being built, is variable. It changes from one year to another. Some years are high, some years are low. And when the drought year comes, and when the extended drought years come, it will be a problem if we don't have rules for how the dam will be operating at that time. It could be a drought that is extended for several years, where Egypt has no water in its Hayaswan Dam reservoir, and where all the water is stored in the Ethiopian dam, and is controlled without any rules or regulations. You don't know when they will open. You don't know how much it will be released. In the 80s, there was an extended drought for 6-7 years, where the water in the Hayaswan Dam reservoir in Egypt dropped to the levels of the gates. If that drought would have extended one more year, there would be no water that could be released from the Hayaswan Dam, and not any drop of water would be flowing through the river to Egypt. So it is a serious problem, and the impacts should not be looked at short-sighted or at the moment, but we should, everybody should know that this impact could happen in the future, and that's why there is an importance in having a binding agreement between the three countries, which stipulate what would be the rules for filling, of course, and for the operation also of the dam.
Yes. Well, as you've mentioned, there is no legally binding agreement between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan to control the operating and filling of the dam. And we've been negotiating this issue for 10 years. And a lot of different intermediary parties were involved. And now Egypt is looking to raise this issue at the UN Security Council. Do you think that the UN Security Council can actually force Ethiopia or pressure Ethiopia or find some sort of a way to have a legally binding agreement?
Well, I mean, this could be the role of the UN Security Council if they would collectively agree to it. But within the UN Security Council, there are so many different interests, and really the countries have to look at the problem regardless of their special interests, which is very difficult, of course. But if the countries would look at the issue and the problem really from a substantive point of view, and look at it with the details, with bringing the experts that actually could, neutral experts, if there are available for the UN Security Council, to call upon them and to look at the issue, at the impacts, at the potential impacts, and what the serious problems that Sudan and Egypt are raising, and look at it seriously, because this could affect the peace and security in the region. I mean, if you affect the livelihood of a country, that's an issue that is affecting peace and security. So there is a role that the UN Security Council could play, But of course, the countries that are members of the Security Council, and especially the 5 main permanent members, they have to come to an agreement on a decision that could be made. So it's kind of a difficult situation, but we hope that there would be a positive output out of this process.
Well, a lot of people are saying, well, it might not be in the interests of other countries or other political parties, and some people are saying, well, it's not really the government, it's not really the political interests of other countries, but more like the individual businessmen from other different countries who actually have a stake in the construction of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. How much can governments and countries influence their own native businessmen, or is it, when we talk about business, it's business for the sake of business? No politics could be involved.
Well, I'm not sure if that argument is really the case. I don't know if there are businessmen from the 5 permanent countries that are involved, but some of the countries themselves, like if we look at China, for instance, it is contributing to the construction of the electric grid in Ethiopia, which will be carrying and conveying the electricity that is coming out of the dam. So they would be, of course, looking at the benefit of having their grid working after this dam is being built. These kind of interests may play some role. But other than that, there are some countries that may be interested in some other benefits that are beyond even hydropower, which should not be the case for this particular dam, which was mainly built for hydropower. But if the country converts that objective to another one, which is looking at irrigated agriculture and consumptive use of the water, that would be also another issue, which is going to be a major problem. Ethiopia has abundance of rainfall. It receives around 900, in average, around 960 billion cubic meters of rainfall per year, so it depends mainly on rain-fed agriculture, also renewable groundwater from this rainfall. So it doesn't need the water from the surface water that will be created in the reservoir behind the dam for irrigated agriculture. It could very well depend on just rain-fed agriculture and supplemental irrigation from groundwater, which will save the water for the downstream countries which do not have any other renewable resource other than this one. But you never know what will happen also, because if this happens, it would be just not a sustainable solution for a transboundary river basin where it should be benefiting downstream countries and upstream countries. Upstream, in this particular case of the Nile River, because it's a special case. The Nile River, the downstream country in the Nile River, which is Egypt, depends mainly on the Nile River for its livelihood, and it doesn't have any rainfall. You don't find this case in many other rivers. It's a very special case where a downstream country on a river that is shared by 11 countries is dependent 100% on that particular river, and where upstream countries have abundant rainfall. They depend mainly on rainfall, but they could also make use of this river in hydropower generation, which is a non-consumptive use. Although it has some losses associated with it, because with this dam that is going to be developed and the reservoir behind the Ethiopian dam, there will be a lot of seepage losses and evaporation losses, which will reduce the water flows downstream. And Egypt has accepted to have this kind of small, it's not really small, but these losses, so that Ethiopia can benefit. But to affect the actual water with no binding rules or regulations for operation and filling, that would be a major problem. So,
Dr. Abu Zeid, now you're the Regional Water Director and Regional Director of Programs for the Arab Water Council. Now, imagining the worst case scenario, or at least imagining that these negotiations would still drag for a year or two, and you're saying that we might be seeing the effects of this Ethiopian dam a little bit later on. What sort of preparations or programs that Egypt can undertake to at least safeguard its water security and health for the foreseeable future?
Well, Egypt is already working on developing the non-conventional water resources that could be developed, because there is a limit as well. So Egypt is almost recycling all its water resources, and it has plans to recycle all its water resources through recycling agricultural drainage, recycling treated wastewater, and also is expanding Egypt in desalination, but on the coastal areas, using some of the renewable water resources, but the renewable groundwater, but it's very limited. It's the same Nile water that it's using, it's recycling it through groundwater.
Yes.
There are some groundwater in the desert, but they are non-renewable groundwaters, and they have been depleted in many, many areas. So it's not a sustainable resource that you could depend on for major developments for so many years. It is non-renewable, and it is limited for certain developments for a period of time. So this is the level of security that Egypt is working on. But in the meantime, Egypt is working on protecting its existing Nile water rights.
Yes.
It's been using this water for thousands of years. It has acquired rights to this water. There are agreements between Egypt and Sudan to use whatever amount of water was flowing through the downstream countries, Sudan and Egypt. Egypt's right to 55.5 billion cubic meters per year. And it's not just a matter of an agreement that it signed with Sudan. It is the needs behind this 55.5 billion cubic meters per year. It is the continuous use of this amount for years and years and years. It is the acquired rights to this water, and the dependence and the needs for this amount of water.
Yes.
So it will continue to protect these rights and continue to develop the non-conventional water resources that could be made available.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Abu Zeid has mentioned, there are a lot of efforts by the Egyptian government to safeguard its share of the Nile water, also really working on using and reusing the existing water in Egypt. In the meantime, Egypt is also helping construct other dams in other countries, helping for the developmental projects in other countries, namely Tanzania. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Khaled Abu Zeid, the Regional Water Director at Sedare and the Regional Director of Programs at the Arab Water Council. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.